This is Greek with David Hutchison. Verbs, present, active, indicative. Today we're going to take a look at some verbs. Verbs are words that describe action or a state of being. In the sentence, I hit the ball, the verb hit is the word hit is the verb. It's the action word. I am reading the book. The verb is am reading. In English, that one has a helping verb, am, but all together it forms the verb. She studies Greek. The action word is studies. We love God. The verb is the word love. Love is a verb. I am a believer. Now, is that an action or a state of being? That one is a state of being. So verbs are action words, or they describe a state of being. For a Greek verb, what you basically have, think of one box where the verb meaning resides, and then we're going to take some endings and put them at the end, and those sorts of things are going to tell us whether it's first person, I, second person, you, third person, he. They're going to tell us singular or plural. So you have a verb meaning box, you have an endings box, you smash them together, and you get a Greek verb. So for example, imagine that you have this box right here with baptiz. This is the present stem of the verb baptizo. The basic meaning is baptize. The ending, the omega ending, this will tell us it's going to be I. These are personal endings, by the way, person and number, first, second, third, singular, plural. So you take the verb meaning baptize, and you take the ending that tells you it's going to be I, and you put it together, baptizo, and you have I baptize. What do you think about this one? We've got this present stem of this verb, the verb luo. The present stem is lu. This means to loose or to untie. You have the ending o, omega, that tells you I. So you put them together, you get luo. This means I loose or I untie. Let's try one more example. You have the box with aku. The meaning here is here. You take the ending that means I, so you get akuo, I hear. Basically, this is how a Greek verb works. You take the box with the meaning, that little part, you take the endings, that little part, you smash them together, you get a Greek verb. By the way, where do you think endings always go? Endings always go at the end. Not such a difficult concept. You may hear them called suffixes. That word may be a little bit more unfamiliar. We'll just call them endings. So let's learn some endings. We'll call these the number one endings. You'll also see them called the primary active endings. I call them number one just for simplicity. So these endings are o, ace, a, amen, ete, usi, with a movable nu. O, ace, a, amen, ete, usi, with a movable nu. So you practice them right now too. Anytime we do a chart like this, you will learn it better if you say it out loud and if you write it. So let's practice. O, ace, a, amen, ete, usi. These are the number one endings, the primary active endings. O, ace, a, amen, ete, usi. This will basically tell you I, you, he, she, or it, we, you, they. O, ace, a, amen, ete, usi. Verbs have person and number. The person could be first person, second person, or third person, and the number is either going to be singular or plural. So a first person verb, it could be I, that's singular. Plural is we, that's first person. The first person most people care about is I. The second person someone cares about is you. You is singular or plural. Greek is going to have a different form for singular and plural. So this makes it easier in some ways to know who the author is talking about. Is he talking about you singular, or is he talking about you plural? After this lesson, that's something that you can already do to help people at church, is to know if the Bible is saying you singular or you plural in certain places. English doesn't really distinguish between that like it once did. Third person is he, she, or it on the singular side, and they on the plural. So again, these number one endings, when we look at them on a chart, on the singular column, I, you, he, she, or it, we, you, or they on the plural side. Okay, so today's lesson is about verbs that are present, active, indicative. Most of that's not going to make sense right now, and don't really worry about it. It will come to you throughout the semester. Present is the tense. Active is the voice. That means the subject is doing the action. Indicative is the mood. This is the mood of reality. File it away, but don't worry about it for now. So how do we form the present active indicative? Well, you take the present stem, you add the number one endings, you smash them together, you get a verb. So let's look at this verb. This is the verb luo. It means I loose or I untie. So the present stem of luo is lu. So we have lu all throughout the chart. We're going to add the number one endings. Remember, these are o, ace, a, amen, ete, usi. O, ace, a, amen, ete, usi. Number one endings. So we take the present stem plus the number one endings and we smash them together. We join them together. We conjugate. Join it together. Here we go. Luo, luace, lue, luamen, luete, luusi. You take the present stem, you add on the endings, and you get the chart. This would mean I loose, you loose, he, she, or it looses, we loose, you loose, they loose. I'll ask you throughout the semester, what is the key to this or that? And the key, the big key for present active indicative, this will be on a quiz, the key to present active indicative is number one endings. Number one endings. There's one key, number one endings. What are those endings again? Do you think you should know them? O, ace, a, amen, ete, usi. You better believe this will be on a quiz. O, ace, a, amen, ete, usi. Number one endings, primary active endings. So I told you a moment ago what you do is you take the present stem and you add the number one endings. You may have wondered, well, how do you get the present stem? Well, it's not so hard. What you do is you take the lexical form of the word. That means the dictionary form. That's the form you look up in a dictionary, the form you look up in a lexicon, or the vocab form, the form you look up in your vocab list or at the back of the book. So you take that form for these verbs and you chop off the omega, and what you have is the present stem. So for example, luo, if we chopped off the omega, we would be left simply with lu. Akuo, a verb that means I hear, like the word acoustics. Take off the omega, you're left with aku. That would be the present stem. Baptίζω, the verb that means I baptize. Take off the omega, you're left with baptiz. That would be the present stem. Echo. Take off the omega, you're left with ek. So that's how you get the present stem. Now, by the way, when you look up one of these words, one of these verbs that we're studying in a lexicon, the form that you see, the lexical form, will be the present, active, indicative, first person singular form. So when you look up luo, it's going to say luo. That's what it looks like in present, active, indicative, first singular. When you look up akuo, that's the present, active, indicative, first singular form. So that's called the lexical form, lexical form. And in case you're wondering, sometimes people will differentiate between a dictionary and a lexicon. Sometimes they'll say a dictionary is a book of words in the same language, and when you're moving from one language to another, let's call it a lexicon. Some people don't care, and they say they're just the same thing. Now, there are a couple of ways that we can translate these forms that we're learning today, the present, active, indicative forms. So we have the verb luo. One way to translate it is I loose. This is just a general statement. There's no specific comment on the action. So what do you do? I teach. What do you do? I sleep. So just a basic general type of statement. You can also translate it, because the present tense can mean this depending on context, I am loosing. This is if it's emphasizing action in progress. Do you see the difference between I loose and I am loosing? Or I teach and I am teaching? What do you do? I teach. What are you doing? Well, I'm teaching right now. So action in progress, you would do the ing type of form, and just the general form, something like I loose. How about the verb baptizo? You could translate it in this general sense of I baptize. If the text seems to indicate, based on context, and context is always key, that there's action going on, then the present tense can say I am baptizing. Now what about questions? You remember this question mark? It looks like a semicolon. So here we have luo question mark. So luo is I loose. When you throw in the question mark, I loose. So in English, we don't simply say I loose, but we add words to help. Do I loose? You wouldn't simply say I loose. You would say do I loose? Or, action in progress, am I loosing? Am I loosing? How about baptizo question mark? Do I baptize? Action in progress, am I baptizing? So that's how you'll handle questions. You can also put the word not in there. The word not in Greek is ou. This is the word not for a verb in the indicative mood. That's the mood we're studying. Later we'll study other moods, and when we get there, we're going to use the word may. So again, don't worry about what indicative mood means, but just know that's where we are. So we've got the word ou. So if I say ou luo, I do not loose. Ou luo, I do not loose. Or if I wanted to emphasize action in progress, I am not loosing. I am not loosing. So the word ou negates a verb. If the next word begins with a vowel, then ou is going to change to ook. Ook with a kappa. This just helps it basically sound better. Ook akue would be he does not hear, or he is not hearing. Kappa, if you have the next word begins with a vowel. Akue begins with an alpha, that's a vowel. If you have a rough breathing mark on the next word, remember a rough breathing mark is basically an H sound, then you're going to grab an H onto ook, and it becomes ook with a key, the CH sound. Uk hetoimazo, because hetoimazo begins with that rough breathing mark. Okay, so that's the word oo, ook, or ook. That's how we say not. So when you look at charts like we've been doing, and you join endings to verbs, you're joining things together, what you're basically doing is a word called conjugating. This comes from the Latin word conjugo or conjugo. That means I join together. If I were to say something like conjugate luo in the present active indicative, what I'm saying is add the endings to luo to form the present active indicative. So I would take that present stem lu, and then I would take the endings o, ace, a, amen, eti, usi, and I would join them together and get luo, lues, lue, luamen, luete, luusi. That's what conjugating means. When we do verbs, we're going to conjugate. When we do nouns later, we're going to decline. I might say to you, conjugate baptizo in the present active indicative. And so you would take that present stem, baptids, and add the endings o, ace, a, amen, eti, usi. And it would look like this: baptizo, baptidzes, baptidze, baptizamen, baptidzite, baptidzusi. By the way, on that third plural form, what is that nu in parentheses? That's a movable nu. A movable nu. If I said conjugate echo in the present active indicative, you would take the present stem ek and add the endings o, ace, a, amen, eti, usi, and you would get echo, ekase, eke, ekomen, ekete, ekusi. So let's do a little bit of practice. I've got the endings for you on the right here, o, ace, a, amen, eti, usi. So we have this verb ekomen. This comes from echo, that means I have. So you've got the basic meaning have, and you have the amen ending, that's first plural, that's we. So ekomen would be we have. How about this? Akuete. Akuete. This is from akuo, which means I hear. You take the ete ending, o, ace, a, amen, ete, usi, second plural, so you plural. So you plural hear. You plural hear. Or, based on context, you are hearing. You plural are hearing. Baptizo. Baptizo. We look at the endings on the right, o, ace, a, amen, eti, usi. So the o ending is first singular, I. Baptizo, I baptize, or I am baptizing. Pistues, question mark. Pistues, question mark. Pistuo means I believe. So you have the believe meaning. You have the ace ending, o, ace, that's second singular. You singular. You singular believe, question mark. So you could say, do you believe? In English, we don't simply say, you believe, question mark. Most of the time we say, do you believe? Didaskes. Didaskes. This is from the word that means I teach, didasko. You have the ace ending, second singular. You teach. Blepo. Blepo. Here we have the omega ending. This means I see. I see. Okay, so these are the number one endings, o, ace, a, amen, eti, usi. You're starting to get them in your head by now, o, ace, a, amen, eti, usi. Now I want you to notice, right here on the right, we have this omicron right here on amen, and we have this epsilon on ete. What these actually are is called connecting vowels. Connecting vowels go between the verb stem and the endings to make things go a little bit smoother. They're kind of the cartilage of a Greek verb. So here's the rule for connecting vowels. Omicron before a mu or nu, epsilon before everything else. Omicron before a mu or nu, epsilon before everything else. So if we were to have the endings, the number one endings without connecting vowels, it would simply be o, ace, a, min, te, usi. O, ace, a, min, te, usi. But what I've done for simplicity, and a lot of grammars do this, o, ace, a, amen, eti, usi. It just saves a step at this point. Now back to this movable nu. The nu on the third plural form on the chart, the usi with a movable nu, this is called a movable nu. That's that nu in parentheses. What do you guess a movable nu might do? Well, it might move. It will show up or not depending upon what comes next. If the next word begins with a vowel, or if there's a punctuation mark, maybe a comma, maybe a period, maybe a question mark, then the nu is going to show up. Otherwise, the nu doesn't show up. It doesn't change the meaning. It basically just is for the sake of sound. In English, we have something similar to this with the word a or the word an. A football, an apple. Doesn't change the meaning. It's just there for the sake of how we pronounce things. So that's why you see that movable nu hanging out on the third plural form there. It's a movable nu. The next word begins with a vowel. The nu shows up. The next thing you see is a punctuation mark. The nu shows up. Otherwise, the nu doesn't show up. There's another verb I want to introduce you to today called a me. This is the being verb, the I am verb. As you might imagine, it's extremely frequent in the New Testament, so that means we're going to memorize it. A me, a, st. What is that on the third singular form? That's a movable nu. Esmin, este, ac. There's another movable nu. A me, a, st, esmin, este, ac. A me, a, st, esmin, este, ac. Memorize this one. Put the movable nus on the chart. There are other people besides me who do songs, and so one of the albums with Greek songs does this to the Mexican hat dance. A me, a, st, esmin, este, ac. If you remember that tune, that song might help you. A me, a, st, esmin, este, ac. And translating it, I am, you are, he, she, or it is, we are, you are, they are. That's the verb a me. Very important. Now just to give you an example, this verb shows up in Revelation 1:8. Ego, a me, ta alpha, chi ta omega. Let's just look at that part. Ego means I, like the word ego. Ego, a me, I am, ta alpha, chi ta omega. I am the alpha, chi, and ta omega. I am the alpha and the omega. So there's a me in action. By the way, in the book of John, Jesus says, ego, a me, I am. Frequently. It's extremely important. I am the bread of life, I am the light of the world, so on and so forth. He also simply says, John 8:58, ego, a me, period. Just like the Lord said at the burning bush. Moses wants to know who is speaking, who is sending. The voice says, I am who I am. I am the one who is. When Jesus in John 8 says, before Abraham was, I am, he's calling attention back to that burning bush episode. And the Jews were none too happy about it. They knew what he was doing. Here's a new word for you called parsing. In language classes, you parse things. That just means you're going to identify the elements. So if we're going to parse a verb, since we're studying verbs, here are the things we're going to identify. The tense, the voice, the mood, person, number, lexical form, and lexical meaning. Tense, voice, mood, person, number, lexical form, lexical meaning. So far, tense is pretty easy. All we've studied to this point is present. So guess what you put? Present. Voice, all we've studied is active. So you put active. Mood, indicative. So you got 3 points right there. Present, active, indicative. Person is not so bad either. It's either first, second, or third. And number is either singular or plural. So right now you would do present, active, indicative. If it's a first singular form, you would put first singular. If it's a third plural, you'd put third plural. Then you give the lexical form. In other words, what is the form that you look up in the lexicon? What is the dictionary form? And then the lexical meaning. In other words, the basic meaning. Now here, I'm not asking you to translate when you're giving the lexical meaning. When I'm asking you to translate, you'll translate. But when I'm asking for the lexical meaning, all you have to do is just repeat what the basic meaning is in a lexicon. For a verb, 7 things: tense, voice, mood, person, number, lexical form, lexical meaning. Let's give this a whirl. On the verb lue. Lue. This is from our verb luo. So keep those endings in mind. O, ace, a, amen, ete, usi. O, ace, a, amen, ete, usi. Okay. Well, we know we're studying present right now, so we can go ahead and get that. We know we're also studying active indicative, so I got that. So is it first person, second, or third? O, ace, a, amen, ete, usi. O, ace, a. That's it. Third person, and then is it singular or plural? O, ace, a, amen, ete, usi. It's third singular. Okay, so present active indicative, third singular. What does this one come from? What's the dictionary form? What's the lexical form? Well, it's luo. And what is the basic meaning of luo? I loose. Present active indicative, third singular, from luo, I loose. Let's try one of these being verbs. This is a form of me, esmin. We know right now this is going to be present tense because that's all we've studied so far. In terms of its voice, being verbs don't have voice. An active voice verb basically means the subject performs the action, but there's no action to a being verb, so we just leave that spot blank. So we're going to say present, and then we're going to skip the voice column, just go right past it. So present, skip the voice. Then the mood, well, we're doing indicative. Then, is it first, second, or third? So we had a me, a, esti, esmin, este, ac. So esmin is that first plural form. So we'll say it's first person, and then it's plural. And now what is the form in the lexicon? What is the form in the lexicon? It's a me. And what does it mean? Means I am. That's the lexical meaning. All right, so that's going to wrap it up for present active indicative. Remember those number 1 endings, o, ace, a, amen, ete, usi. And remember, where do you put endings? You put them on the end. You attach them to that present stem, and that's how you make the present active indicative of a Greek verb.